The room fell into complete silence the moment she walked in. An 8-year-old girl, barely 4 feet tall, wearing a navy cardigan and faded jeans, stood at the center of the family courtroom in Springfield, Illinois, holding a bright purple binder covered in glittery stickers. "I'm here to speak for my mother," she said, her voice steady despite the way her tiny fingers clutched the binder tight against her chest. "My name is Emily Walker, and I'd like to represent my mom in this custody case." Judge Harold Mitchell, a seasoned man with gray hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose, looked up slowly from the paperwork in front of him. "I'm sorry, young lady. You're who?" "I'm not a lawyer," Emily said, lifting her chin, "but I've studied the law for the last 3 weeks. I'm here because my mom can't afford anyone else, and because my dad is lying to this court." A murmur broke through the room like a wave. Court clerks exchanged glances. A security guard stepped forward instinctively. The attorney on the right, a tall man in an expensive suit, let out a small laugh. "This is absurd, Your Honor," said David Carter's lawyer, Mr. Bradley Holt. "This child is clearly being coached. This isn't a joke. This is a legal proceeding." But Emily didn't even blink. "According to the Illinois Child Protection Act, Section 3101, she replied, "any minor has the right to be heard in a court proceeding that affects their welfare. I'm not here to play. I'm here because someone has to tell the truth." Judge Mitchell leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. "Miss Walker, do you understand what this hearing is about?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said without hesitation. "It's about whether I stay with the woman who's raised me with love or go live with the man who wants custody for reasons that have nothing to do with me." Across the room, David Carter, a man in his early 40s with a slick haircut and a gold watch peeking from under his sleeve, shifted in his chair. He scoffed. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I'm her father." Emily turned slowly to face him. "You're my father by blood, but that's the only part that ever mattered to you." "Objection! Your Honor, this is manipulation," Holt interrupted, rising from his chair. Judge Mitchell raised a hand. "Let her speak. I want to hear what she has to say." Emily took a breath, then opened the binder. "I've organized everything. School reports, medical records, text messages, even a recording." Her voice didn't waver. "A recording of my father admitting that he filed for custody because I'm about to inherit $350,000 from my grandfather's estate." Gasps echoed around the courtroom. David's mouth fell open. "You don't know what you're talking about." Emily snapped the binder shut. "I do. I heard you say it. I recorded it, and I brought it with me today, along with the evidence that proves my mom has taken care of me every single day of my life, while you haven't shown up to a single parent-teacher conference." Judge Mitchell didn't say a word, but the air in the room changed. Something about the way this child stood, with certainty, clarity, and fire in her eyes, shifted the tone from disbelief to curiosity, then to awe. "I know I'm young," Emily added, her voice suddenly softer, "but I'm old enough to know the difference between being wanted and being used." She looked at her father again. No anger, just a tired kind of sadness. "I don't want to be used." Emily placed the binder carefully on the desk before her. Each tab was labeled in block letters: school, medical, messages, financial, recording, and she reached first for the one labeled recording. "I'd like to begin with Exhibit A," she said. "Emily?" David stood up suddenly, his voice louder than it needed to be. "This isn't how things work. You're a child, for God's sake." She met his eyes without fear. "Then you shouldn't have underestimated a child." Judge Mitchell held up a hand. "Mr. Carter, sit down. She's been given the floor." Emily clicked an old flip phone, the kind you could barely find anymore. "This was my mom's backup phone. She left it home that day. I pressed record when I heard him talking on speakerphone in the living room." She held the phone to the microphone. A beep, then a voice, David's voice, filled the courtroom. "Yeah, I know she's still with her mom, but that'll change. I filed already. Custody hearings in 2 weeks. She doesn't know a damn thing about the inheritance. How much is it again? Another voice asked. Male, unfamiliar. $350. Maybe more if the stocks go through. Once I've got her living with me, it's my name on that trust. A collective gasp filled the room. Someone in the gallery whispered, "Did he just say that out loud?" David turned pale. His lawyer's face flushed deep red. "I'd like that to be entered as evidence," Emily said. "Under the Illinois Evidence Rule 801D. This is not hearsay. It's a direct admission from the opposing party." Judge Mitchell leaned forward, stunned. "Where did you learn that rule?" "I watched legal briefings on YouTube, and my teacher helped me find the court archives." She tapped the binder. "That's all in here." She turned the page. Exhibit B, my school records. She held up a stack of documents. Perfect attendance, straight A's. Notes from my teachers confirming my mother is at every conference, every school play, every field trip meeting. My father has not attended one single school event. Not once. Mr. Holt cleared his throat. "Your Honor, may I remind the court that these are statements from a minor?" "You may not," Judge Mitchell cut in. "Unless you'd like to question her yourself." Emily continued. Exhibit C, messages. These are text messages my mom sent to my father over the last 2 years, letting him know about my illnesses, school projects, birthday plans. His average response? 1-word replies. "Okay. Cool. Busy." She pulled out a printed screenshot. "Here's one from my birthday last year." She texted him, "Emily's party is at 4. She would love to see you." His response? "Can't. Working." But here's a picture of him at a Cubs game that same day, posted by his girlfriend. She passed the printout to the bailiff. "You can match the timestamps." David buried his face in his hands. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but David didn't even move. Emily flipped to the next tab. Exhibit D, financial support. Or the lack of it. He hasn't paid a single dime in child support for 2 years and 7 months. Not once. "Your Honor," she added, turning to the bench, "we live in a 2-bedroom apartment. My mom works 16 hours a day, cleaning offices in the morning and houses at night, just to pay for my school supplies and meals. But I've never gone to bed hungry. She's never missed rent, never once told me no to a school book I needed, even when it meant she skipped dinner." Sarah Walker wiped her eyes from the back of the courtroom. Emily's voice didn't crack once. "And now my father wants to come back, not because he loves me, but because I'm suddenly valuable." There was no mistaking the tone of betrayal in her words. A teacher in the gallery stood up. "Your Honor, if I may?" Judge Mitchell nodded. "State your name." "Karen Whitmore. I'm Emily's 3rd grade teacher. I'm not part of the case, but if I may offer a statement." "Go ahead." "I've taught over 800 students. Emily is the brightest child I've ever worked with, not just academically, but emotionally. She reads law books during lunch. She organized a tutoring club for classmates struggling in math. But what always struck me the most is the way she talks about her mother, with pure admiration. There is no way she was coached. She built this case herself. I watched her do it." Judge Mitchell looked back at Emily. "Do you have anything else?" Emily flipped to the final tab. Exhibit E, personal testimony. She picked up a small spiral notebook. "This is my diary. I'd like to read one entry." "No, absolutely not," David barked. "That's private." Emily stared at him. "You lost your right to privacy when you made me into a transaction." She opened the notebook. September 17th, he said he'd come. I waited by the door for 3 hours. Mom baked a cake. I kept looking out the window. But he never came. Mom said maybe he got busy. But I know better. He just forgot. The courtroom was silent. Judge Mitchell leaned forward. "Emily, do you want to make a formal request of this court?" She nodded, her voice calm now. "Yes, Your Honor. I ask that full legal custody be granted to my mother, Sarah Walker, and that my father's request be denied permanently." David stood. "She doesn't know what she's asking for." Emily met his eyes. I do. I'm asking for peace, for love, for safety. She paused, then looked at the judge. I'm asking for the right to stay with the only person who's ever shown me what real love looks like. Judge Mitchell didn't speak for a full minute. He removed his glasses, polished them slowly with a handkerchief, and stared at the girl standing in front of him like she wasn't a child, but a witness history would remember. He cleared his throat, his voice low. Emily Walker, in all my years on this bench, I've never seen anything quite like you. She didn't smile. She simply waited, calm, collected, and still. This court rules, he continued, standing now, that legal and physical custody shall remain solely with Sarah Walker. The request from David Carter is not only denied, but permanently barred from resubmission. A soft gasp echoed through the room. Emily blinked hard. Her hands trembled for the first time. The judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, he added, based on the child's own testimony and corroborating evidence, this court acknowledges her right to reject visitation. No forced contact will be mandated. Mr. Carter, your actions have demonstrated an utter lack of parental integrity. David stood up, stunned. You're letting a child decide. I'm letting the truth decide, the judge said, and the truth is loud and clear. David's lawyer sat frozen, unable to look up. Emily exhaled deeply. Her mom rushed forward, tears streaming down her face, arms wide open. For the first time in that cold courtroom, Emily dropped her binder and ran into her mother's embrace. The room erupted into applause. Strangers stood. The bailiff clapped. Even the judge, still standing, gave a single nod of approval. Later that night, back in their tiny apartment, Emily sat at the kitchen table, binder still open beside her. The purple cover was worn now, the glitter peeling. But it was still her symbol of everything they had overcome. Mom? She asked softly. Yes, baby. I want to help kids like me, kids who don't know they have a voice. Sarah kissed the top of her head. You already do. 2 weeks later, a clip of the court hearing went viral online. A reporter had asked for permission to use part of the public testimony for a news segment. What happened next was beyond anyone's imagination. The girl with the binder trended nationwide. News anchors cried on air. Parents reposted her speech. Law students cited her arguments in real-time lectures. And schools across the country reached out, asking, "Can Emily speak to our students?" At first, Sarah said no. Emily needed time, but Emily had a different answer. If they want to listen, then I'll speak. She stood before her first school auditorium 3 months later, holding that same glittery binder. My name is Emily Walker, she said to the crowd, and I'm not special. I'm just a girl who didn't want to be used. And I learned that sometimes you have to be the one to protect the people who protect you. The auditorium erupted in cheers. 4 years passed. At age 12, Emily stood at the steps of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., about to present a bill inspired by her story. The crowd included senators, child psychologists, and families from across the country. She adjusted the microphone, then spoke with the same calm confidence she had shown in court. I propose the Children's Legal Literacy Act, she declared. A bill that ensures all students, starting from age 8, receive basic education in their rights, so no child ever has to face the system unarmed. Senators nodded. Her voice didn't shake. Not once. I believe knowledge is the shield every child deserves. The bill passed unanimously. It became known across the country as the Walker Act. At 18, she started the Emily Walker Foundation, a nonprofit offering free legal support for children in vulnerable family situations. By 21, her foundation had helped over 12,000 families across the United States. Then came the call she never expected. A quiet Tuesday morning, a number from New York. Miss Walker, the voice said, I'm calling from Time magazine. You've been selected as Person of the Year. She sat frozen, staring at the phone. Why? She whispered. Because you changed the system, and you never raised your voice. You just spoke the truth. The headline read, "The Girl Who Spoke for Millions." At the award ceremony in Manhattan, Sarah held her daughter's hand tighter than ever. When Emily reached the podium, cameras flashed. The crowd stood, and she began with just 4 words. I had no choice. The room fell silent. I didn't speak up because I was brave. I spoke up because silence would have cost me everything: my mother, my childhood, myself. She paused, scanning the crowd. I am not here to be celebrated. I'm here to remind you that children are not invisible, and that love, no matter how poor or quiet or small, is worth defending. Standing in the back, Judge Mitchell wiped his eyes behind his old glasses. The next morning, Emily received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a folded note. Thank you for reminding me what justice is supposed to look like. H.M. Years passed. Her foundation grew. One day she was walking into her office when a small voice called out, "Excuse me, Miss Walker?" A girl, no older than 8, stood nervously at the door, holding a red binder with rainbow stickers. Emily knelt down, smiling. "Nice binder," she said. "My mom needs help," the girl whispered, "and nobody believes me." Emily placed her hand gently over the child's. "They will now.